Hi, Sueli. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. It will be a pleasure to talk to you about innovation and everything that is going on in this different times, the new world that will arise from everything that we are together living in these days. Today, we have with us a lot of interesting people to share their views and knowledge with us. We have Alexandre Soncini, North America General Manager for VTEX. We have Carolina Strobel, Operating Partner from Redpoint Eventures. We have Carlos Bremer, he's the VP of Knowledge and Research at Brain for Care. We will have Mike Romeri, CEO of Analytics to Go. Rodrigo Bernardinelli, CEO of DGB. Ronald Barcellos, CEO of Green Mile, and Ricardo Perro, CEO from Sellers Funding Corp. So I know everybody from this panel. I know your bios, really impressive things that you have achieved up to now. So I would ask you, starting with Alexandre, going on an alphabetical order, if you guys could introduce yourselves, tell us about your background and what you do and about your companies before we start with our questions here. So Alexandre, if you don't mind introducing yourself and your company.
Sure. Thank you very much, Guilherme, and thank you, Sueli, for organizing that. It's amazing to be able to share some thoughts with this amazing lineup. So I work with VTEX. VTEX is an e-commerce platform with almost like 3,000 clients now in over 30 countries, different countries. The company started in Brazil 20 years ago. I'm one of the co-founders of the company. Right now, I've been living in the US for the last 4 years. And before that, I used to run sales in Brazil, then Argentina, then Mexico. And I have opened our operations in each of these regions and built like self-sufficient teams to hand it over to them. And at the end of the day, as a founder, I need to do everything that it's needed for the company and for us to be successful. So thank you very much for the opportunity of being here today.
Thank you so much, Alex. Carol?
So good night, everyone. So first, let me thank Sueli and Guilherme for doing such a fantastic work today. And my name is Carolina Strobel. It's a great pleasure to be here with you and give you some input on venture capital in Brazil and innovation, especially during this pandemic. I'm a partner at Redpoint Ventures. It's which is a venture capital firm focused on technology. It invests in Latin American startups with a very close partnership with two venture capital groups from the Silicon Valley. So eventures and Redpoint. We manage over $300 million, and we currently have over 48 companies in our portfolio, including Creditas, Gympass, Pipefy, Happy. I can tell you a lot about them. But the thing that we love to talk about is that we co-founded Cubo. Cubo is the second largest innovation hub in the world. It's based in São Paulo. And that's where we were headquartered until 10 weeks ago. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carol. Carlos, would you like to introduce yourself and Brain for Care?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for having the chance to talk to you. Thanks, Sueli. It's nice to see and work together again after so many years. I am in charge of the research and knowledge management at Brain for Care. I moved here to the US 4 years ago. I was a partner from Ernst & Young. And before that, I had my own consulting business, and I spent also 10 years at the University of São Paulo. So I have a mixed career. What Brain for Care does, it's a Brazilian startup, almost an early stage company. We have 42 employees, so engineering, IT, analytics, and 3 people here in the US. So we are starting the business. We got the FDA clearance last year. We have already 40 hospitals that use our sensor, 10 already as a client. And what we provide is it's not a new information, but it's gonna be for the first time fully accessible, which is the intracranial waveform pressure. So few people know about it because nowadays to get this information, you have to drill a hole in your skull and put a catheter inside it. So it's very invasive. And so we created a mechanical sensor that captures the skull expansions. So we are able to expose the waveform every heartbeat. The blood comes in, your skull expands a little bit. Then, every heartbeat you have this expansion, we expose this waveform. This waveform is important because the brain, if you have an increased volume inside the skull doesn't expand. So it compresses your brain and then create a lot of damages. So we are the first company in the world that show this waveform in numbers. So we are a sensor, we are a cloud-based platform, and we are a data company. And I'm very happy to be here to share. And also we have 6 research going on with COVID. So if COVID is a topic here for the conversation, I have some news as well. Thanks so much.
Yes, for sure, Carlos. Thank you so much. And that is really impressive. Thank you so much for that. Mike Romeri, want to tell us about you and analytics go?
Sure, my pleasure. So I spent most of my career in management consulting. I was a partner at a firm called PRTM for 20 years. Most people don't remember the firm, but we created the IP associated with supply chain. So it was the SCORE model, and we did a lot of supply chain consulting and product development consulting. In the course of doing that, I met a professor at MIT named David Simke-Levy. And my last role at PRTM was to help bring technology to the solutions that we offered. So David had some analytic solutions in a company that were related to supply chain. And so we ended up working together, and shortly after I met him, we were able to do a joint project at 3M. So it's very helpful for any company to, work for 3M, particularly a small software company. So we became friends, and we ended up starting a company called Ops Rules. So David had written a book called Operations Rules, which is a very cool book. It's 33 rules that are mathematically proven to apply to any supply chain. So if you don't know about supply chain, it's probably the quickest possible way to learn about supply chain. And so we started this company doing analytics in the supply chain area. And then we had an unusual accident that turned out to be very fortunate. So we had a couple of executives from 3G visit Cambridge and attend David's seminar. And they asked us to help on pricing at one of the companies within 3G called, referred to as B2W, Brazil 2 World, sort of an Amazon-like company for those of you who may not know the company. Mm-hmm. And we were really resistant to do it, but the objective was to improve price optimization. And we were supply chain guys, and so it was a new area for us. But we were able to use demand prediction to make an extraordinary impact there, with maybe 20% improvement in revenue and 40% improvement in profitability for mobile telephones and microwave ovens, where we would never have expected there'd be much opportunity. So over time, that capability, since it was located, in that case, it was really small amounts of time. We would change the price 6 times per day. But over time, we expanded that solution to also be geographically separate. And so it became known as precision forecasting. So we ended up selling that company to Accenture, and we hit our 3rd year number, first year at Accenture, and then we started Analytics to Go. So the prior company was a consulting only company. With this company, we actually run the solutions we develop, and we have an analytic factory in Presidente Prudente in provincial Sao Paulo state. And we have customers in both the US and in Brazil. Burger King's one that everybody knows. We're actually kicking off a pilot for cross-sell right now, even during the pandemic, with Burger King. And we're working with Patria on some of their operating companies. And so we feel like we have a good opportunity. What we're finding right now in the industry generally is that predicting demand in the new period we're in is very difficult. And accurate demand prediction is probably the most important thing any company can do to manage. Thanks,
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. And you also mentioned one of the operating companies of Patria. I think we have a client in common because I know which company you're talking about that work in that same area. That's really nice. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great.
Interesting. Ronald, would you like to tell us more about yourself and Green Mile?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh no, sorry, Ronald. I missed Rodrigo. My apologies. And Rodrigo from DGB, and then we go to you. Sorry for that.
Oh,
and there's a back noise from someone, so I'll ask anyone not speaking if you could mute your mics because there's a back noise from someone. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Guilherme, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sueli and the team of the Florida Council. Thanks for this fantastic lineup here. Some of them are former customers, like Carol, right? Some of them are partners, like Alex Soncini at Vitex, and also our customers in the US, like S. Ricardo at Sellers Funding. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for the audience to be here. So my name is Rodrigo Bernardinelli. I am one of the founders of DGB. DGB is a São Paulo-based company, which is reimagine the way that enterprise integrate their systems, especially into this new digital world that we're all living in, right? So we develop a very simple way to tackle a complex problem, right? And thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, again, and hope you enjoyed this call.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Thank you. Well, now moving to you, Ronald. My apologies for that. Now,
no problem. Sure thing. So first of all,
hearing more about Green Mile.
Sure. Appreciate the opportunity as well from you guys, Sueli, and happy to join this great team of executives here. My background, I've been a serial entrepreneur for basically the last 20 years. Green Mile I founded Green Mile, co-founded Green Mile about 8 years ago. Before that, not other business that I was able to start up and then sell afterwards. Green Mile specifically, and in the last 20 years, I've been in the technology for supply chain logistics space. Green Mile specifically is a company focused on optimizing the last mile logistics of any food and beverage, LPG, retail, field services type of company needing to deliver products and services. So Green Mile does all the route planning, route optimization, and then real-time tracking and performance management of mobile resources. Any companies out there with mobile teams, whether those teams are delivering products or servicing customers or even selling, and these companies need to make sure that those guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing, performing well, keeping their costs low, serving their customers as they want to. Use our technology, and companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Heineken, Nestle are using our technology currently to manage these mobile teams, these deliveries, get visibility to themselves, to their customers of their products and ETAs, and our technology facilitates that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's exciting. And Ricardo Perro from Sellers Funding, do you want to tell us more about yourself and your company?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks, Sueli. Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity. So a little bit about myself. I've been living here in the West since 2000 with 2 quick stops in São Paulo to get a new visa stamp. So now permanent resident, in the US. Founded the company. I spent most of my career working for big financial institutions here in the US, and then in 2016, I decided to live the dream, and I founded Sellers Funding, co-founded Sellers Funding in early 2017. The original idea of our company was to provide working capital solutions for Amazon sellers. We soon realized that the market opportunity was much broader than only lending for Amazon sellers and only Amazon. And we soon realized that our true value proposition was to create a financial platform for e-commerce in general. We believe that retail is changing, and most of our predictions that would happen in the following 3 years happen in the last 3 months. But we stick with our belief that e-commerce is changing. Marketplaces are here to make a huge difference in the way that e-commerce, the e-commerce industry will evolve, providing opportunities for small businesses to compete with retail giants in the online space. The company now is 3 years old. We have about 15,000 registered users in our app. We have a model that consolidates sales on Amazon, Shopify, Magento, eBay, working on other platforms such as Walmart. We are expanding our reach of products and solutions to payments. And nowadays we have about $2 billion in annual sales, feeding our models on a daily basis. We are also transitioning and packaging the solution that we built for ourselves and developing a platform that will be based on API solutions for other platforms. So we are about to launch a partnership with a big software company that focus on e-commerce, and we are about to launch this partnership and automate the credit offering for 70,000 companies worldwide. So excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And maybe already starting with you and also Rodrigo. For example, I was checking DGB's site, and they said we can help you during this pandemic, during this crisis, to turn your enterprise digital. So they are focusing on adding value to their clients during this crisis, and then Rodrigo can naturally give us some thoughts on that. And then to you, Ricardo, since you guys are very much working together with marketplaces, with enterprises selling online, have you seen a spike in this market? How are things going on in that scenario? Because many things will go digital, and this panel is really nice because we have logistics, we have analytics, we have access to data. So how are you seeing that from your perspective? And then turning to Rodrigo to tell us a little bit more about what he is seeing at DGB as well.
All right, thanks, Guilherme. So, well, I think that, well, in the middle of this pandemic, which is of course not a situation that we all would like to be living in, right? So, but there are things that I think will be much more accepted, better accepted, better ways of work that will be more accepted when after this pandemic, like this kind of sort of online meeting that we're all doing right now, right? And also this working from home, right? That we're all experiencing at these times. I have to confess to you that I am not a guy for home office, right? I like the office. I like to be together with everyone there, meeting people, small talk at the coffee. So this is some of the things that I like. But after the pandemic, we observed an increase of performance in our employees, and also our customer were better accepting the remote work that we always does when delivering our solutions. Okay, so DGB is a company, despite we're talking about integration, in reality, we are helping customers to go full digital. And this time where we have to stay at home, we can help our customers to make their projects viable. We can help them to automate things that we're doing manually by integrating systems and applications and internet services and so on. And since we are a platform and a methodology, in fact, that helps customers to deliver a complex process, which is integration, we can deliver that like for a fraction of the cost and the time. And so you can better deploy your resources like people and professionals to work on your experience and so on, and let DGB working with the integration part. So and that's why we're telling our customers, come on, don't hold your projects at this time. So we can help you. We can be a viable alternative to those complex integration projects where you have to spend a lot of resources and people and money and funds and so on. And instead of that, we will help with our platform, with our methodology of working, which is totally digital, and we can help to make your in-house and heavy applications you have to become more mobile, to become more digital by using our platform. So that's the point where we are helping companies in this tough times. You know, here at DigiB, of course, we're a young company. We're born digital. We have a very modern process and remote process. So for DigiB employees, it was really it was not a problem to move to from working at the office and working from home, because we are very used to it. And in fact, our customers, especially our ICP, our ideal customer profile, which are large organizations where they always wanted and requested us to be there personally in place, right? So we were telling those guys, come on, there's no need to do that. We can deploy everything remotely. We can work for you in a great performance, in a great manner, if you stay away. Otherwise, we're just stay in place with you, just waiting for you to do something. So, and the way we work, and now customer is much more open, since they're having to work from home as well, to follow our process, our methods of working from home. And this was like a fundamental change in process. I mean, it became more natural.
This is becoming more natural, right? And then for your type of work, that also comes, you know, it's handy, right? That helps to foster something that would already happen, but maybe in 5 or 10 years, but it's not going to happen in 6 months or a year.
Yeah, and I believe that everyone will have to think twice before having to commute to a business meeting or to travel to somewhere, right? So after this pandemic, we'll all be working like this. you have to think, okay, why gonna stay like 40 minutes in traffic if I can do a quick chat over Hangouts, right? Become more natural. You know, even for my mom is out there, so she's sheltering in place at her home, and she's talking to me every day by video here. So she's getting much more used to it. So it's a fundamental change.
Especially for those of us in Sao Paulo or cities that have terrible traffic issues, right? So then if I can save 2 or 3 hours of my day by doing, you know, virtual meetings or calls or whatever, you know, more innovative way of working, I would prefer that, right? So, and then I think you can maybe charge less from your clients because you spent less time, you can work with more clients. So I think it really can help us reshape many professions and way of serving clients.
That's exactly what it is. So I think that we will be in a very good shape, so to better propose our method, you know, so our way of working remotely in all those efficiency that we are putting in the platform, and also the way we work is it will convert in, of course, in results for customers, right? Budget savings, time to market, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. And then Ricardo, wanna jump in?
Yeah, I can tell you from my own experience exactly what Rodrigo said. We started as we have more than half of our employees based and working remotely. We even though we are a young company, we have employees located in London, New York, Florida, and San Francisco, and São Paulo. Mm-hmm. So we were used to have that remote environment, and for us it was like an easy transition. But talking a little bit about how this whole thing impacted our clients' businesses, and we work under an assumption. If you look at e-commerce sales as a percentage of retail sales in the US, you look at the data for the past decade, you're going to see that retail sales are growing on average around 15% year over year, while retail sales are flat. Retail sales last year represented roughly 10%. E-commerce sales represented roughly 10% of retail sales. Mm-hmm. And when you trace a parallel, you compare that to the UK, for example, e-commerce represents about 20% of retail sales. So we thought, okay, there will be a convergence. UK, of course, if you look at the UK, you have a lot of concentration and there are no issues in terms of logistics because everything happens around London, right? In the US, you have a lot of challenges and the adoption of the online way of purchase. It was growing, but predominantly Amazon owning like 50% of the market and so on. Mm-hmm. That number in the past quarter jumped from 10 to 27%.
Oh, wow.
And of course, that's a combination of retail sales dropping because the retail number includes oil-related products. So you mm-hmm. saw this tanking oil mm-hmm. prices and so on, but also e-commerce going up. And if you look at our portfolio nowadays, the average client grew 50% in the first quarter of this year compared to the same period of last year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the average. We have clients growing, 4 or 5-fold compared to same period of last year, depending on the product. And the underperforming clients, they are flat to negative 10 to 20%.
And Ricardo, do you have clients in Brazil? I was wondering because I was curious about this number in Brazil. You happen to.
Yeah, no, no, not yet. Let's put it this way. I always have that question, of course, because I'm Brazilian and because there is always this idea that Brazil is one of the fastest e-commerce markets globally, and still very fragmented. And in comparison to the US, you have other major players. The market is, you have leading companies, but mm-hmm. it's more balanced than the US. You don't have like Amazon with 50%, and then the second biggest competitor is like 10% the size of Amazon. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I hear that logistics is an issue for e-commerce in Brazil, as we
yes.
right, due to lack of infrastructure, and we do not have the same as in the US, or even if you compare to UK, we're really far from them in terms of logistics. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. And maybe turning into Alex, you told me before that they had to move 500 employees from their offices to home. So and then we had both Rodrigo and Ricardo telling us about this reshaping of to a digital experience. Alex, this is more out of curiosity as well. How was it to move 500 people from office space to workspace?
So I don't know exactly how to answer that, but I would say that it was very difficult in a way that on one hand, we had to do it, so there was no other option. We have in Rio de Janeiro, we have an open office where we have like 500 developers and engineers in our R&D office. And from one day to the other, they all had to work from home. We are not a company with a remote kind of work culture. So we are still trying to adapt. At the beginning, we've helped our employees to have them setting up their like desks, additional monitors, chairs, tables, etc. And we use Slack as our internal like communication tool. I think we've been using much more Slack and Zoom that we were using before, and I think it's the reality of everyone else. Mm-hmm. However, we are still learning on how to switch our kind of internal culture from an office oriented one to the work from home. I think it's been better than what we've expected, but we still have a lot of challenges because on the other hand, and later I can show some numbers from what's happening with our clients. We've been kind of having a Black Friday every day. So e-commerce is kind of having a lot of traffic spikes, and people are buying much more from e-commerce than they were before. So on the other hand, we have been like kind of dealing with situations of more traffic, more orders, etc. And everyone remote. Again, we're still learning and trying to adapt.
Great, thank you. And then Ronald and Carlos, I would assume that for logistics and taking into account that we're seeing, you know, spikes of traffic and those products need to be delivered to customers. So I would assume that, you know, we have, you're busy in terms of logistics for Ronald and for Carlos, and he already told us we're working with some COVID potential related solutions or business. How are you guys and your companies dealing with the crisis? How are things moving? And if you could share us your views from both of your industries, maybe starting with Ronald.
Okay. So as far as our company, we already were remote. I mean, we got 3 offices. We got an headquarters in Orlando. We got an office in São Paulo, another one in Fortaleza. But I mean, we even for our customers, we had to have I'm trying to remember the term, but we have a business preparedness program that if, you know, the world imploded, the company would continue working anyway. So for us, it was easy. Everybody to jump online and continue working. There was very little disruption in terms of our company, our employees functioning, which was great. And interesting enough, because our solutions are last mile optimization, a lot of times economic crises are good times for us, to be quite honest, because the product of our solution is increased performance and reduced cost. And every company is always looking to achieve that anyway. But in times of crisis, they eliminate a lot of projects that are non-priorities. And sometimes we're not competing against other typical competitors, but we're competing against resources and capital in a lot of our customers. So in times of crisis, we see a lot of these companies say, you know what, we had 50 projects. We're just canceling 45 and just keeping 5. And you guys are one of them because last mile is a huge cost. And that's where we see a lot of low-hanging fruit opportunities to reduce cost. And I guess Michael, who's worked with supply chain, knows that a lot. I would say that for this crisis, a few things are interesting, like you guys said. Obviously, in the e-commerce side, we see a lot of people that probably didn't have the culture of buying their stuff online, were forced into and maybe starting to like it, actually. And we'll see those people not abandon that when this whole COVID thing goes away. So I think that will change a little bit, that profile. But even when you look at companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, we have Via Varejo in Brazil. We were talking to those companies. There are a few interesting things. First of all, situations like this one show a lot of these companies that they got to be prepared for change themselves, right? If they get too comfortable in the way things are happening and something changes like it's changing now, and they're not prepared, this can take business companies out of business. It can cause a huge disruption. So I think a lot of companies are looking at it and saying, you know what, we do need the technology. So when change happens, we can adapt quick. And that's one of the things that we're discussing with a lot of our customers. You see Pepsi, Coca-Cola, their volumes are not so much going, they're like everyone else, they're reduced a little bit, but not that significantly. But the profile is changing. A lot of them now are seeing increase in volume from grocery stores, but decrease from convenience stores, right? So they're seeing the logistics outline changing. And if you don't have technology to replan that quickly, re-optimize that, it's dynamic, right? Every week, it could be slightly different than previous week, the volume, the type of customer. So you got to rely on technology to quickly adapt. Your drivers were used to certain routes at certain places, and now in a dynamic environment, they have to be going and doing routes that they were not used to. So you don't have technology to help you quickly respond, quickly adapt, continue up in a way that you continue to optimize and reduce costs. A lot of times it may cost you money and customers to adapt if you're not relying on technology. So this is what we're working with a lot of our customers. We're trying to help them through our technology to, hey, your business is changing, the way you deliver your products, the volumes and everything is changing. Let's help you make sure that you quickly respond to that change and in a way that's optimal, that you continue optimizing and saving money. And we also seen a lot of our customers be creative in how they apply technology to the different challenges of COVID. For example, we heard that one of the Coca-Cola bottlers in Brazil that uses our technology, they were using one of the functionalities that does survey on the mobile applications for the drivers that we have, that they use for other reasons normally. They were using for drivers to report that they were feeling COVID symptoms. And that would kind of generate an automatic task to HR to go talk to this person and do what it needs to do. So I was surprised actually to see some innovation from our technology found out by our customers, not ourselves. And that's actually a great idea. Let's replicate this with some other customers. So I think companies right now, and this is in the middle of the crisis, they're using the technology to adapt. And I think these companies are realizing that they also need to, moving forward, even after this is gone, rethink their business on how they can have technology and be more prepared and more ready for it. And the last comment before I pass it is, a lot of companies are also making, this is a movement that had started prior to the crisis, but I think it's accelerating now, which is take your business digital, right? So a lot of our customers are moving to electronic invoicing and eliminating paperwork and doing things digitally. We got a lot of functionality in our technology to allow that. And some customers were slowly going in that direction. We've seen in this crisis, companies say, hey, we got to accelerate this because now drivers need to drop this product and limit interaction with people, interaction with papers, and make everything digital for obvious reasons. So I think that's another trend that it's accelerating. It existed before, but it's accelerating right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I fully agree with you. Thank you, Ronald. And then Carlos, your perspective on healthcare and what you guys are doing also during this pandemics.
So to answer your question, I have to move us a little bit back to February. So in February, we were doing three things. So one is trying to convince hospitals about the importance of ICUs, how important it was to manage well their ICUs and how to decrease the time of neurological critical patients, the time at the ICU, so they could have more time and increase capacity in the ICU. The second thing we were doing is raising the second round of funding, trying to convince investors about the importance of science and data on the health sector. And the third thing, I was starting a multi-centric research in the US. So I'm managing 50 studies in Brazil, and I was starting a multi-centric study in the US with 9 hospitals here to use our methodology, our method and data around the intracranial pressure monitoring. And then came COVID. So we completely stopped almost all of them. But within the strategy for us, all this conversation kind of became easier. So we don't need to convince anybody else about the importance of ICU and about the importance of managing well the capacity of the ICU. So they are all aware about it. On the funding side, I think it's becoming much easier to explain about the importance of science and data in the health sector. And then I think one curiosity I have is how the VCs and investors, and I myself, I'm an angel investor, about assuming risk. So how much risk we're gonna be able to accept, because everything is uncertain now. So that's something that we are very curious because we hold the fundraising. So we raise 30% of the money. So But, we said, okay, let's stop it now because it doesn't make sense to keep having the conversation. But, that opened completely and changed completely the conversation. And the third thing, so I had to stop all the research here. But at the same time, we started 6 research within 3 weeks. And for the people that know a little bit about studies on the health sector, it takes like months to get the things approved. So we are approving them in 4 or 5 days. And yesterday we submitted an article to the New England Journal, and they normally take months to approve an article. They're evaluating in 3 days. So we might have this, luckily, if we get luck, this approved tomorrow in 2 days. So I never ever in my life innovated and created so much as in the last 4 weeks, because we are recreating everything. And, everything that we were working with is kind of becoming important, but we didn't have the answers to all of that. And even the physicians and the health sector doesn't have the answers. So everybody's kind of trying to figure out, so how the virus works, what is the impact on the brain. So there are a lot of things going on. So it's a very sad moment, but at the same time, very exciting for science and health and startups around that. So it's been a very interesting moment. And talking about COVID, as I said, we are all learning. So how does the virus impact the brain? Apparently it impacts severely. And so there are a lot of research going on. And so we are very excited of being in the middle of this situation now. And as I said, I think one thing that is interesting is also to show that a Brazilian company in a sector that we don't have any stories about health tech, to show here in the US that we might have something interesting in science, in data, in health with a Brazilian team. So one of the research that I was working, and we are very close to get it approved, was with NASA. So we are helping the astronauts in the Mars mission. So they hold it as well. But as I said, so it's very nice to share the story here and see if we as Brazilians and this community could have somehow worked together. I was a former supply chain guy, so it's funny to hear so many supply chain and logistics people here. But now I'm working back to my academia career as a research and knowledge manager. And sorry, I forgot to mention another thing. So this intracranial pressure waveform is known for 50 years, 60 years, but nobody used because it had to drill a hole in the skull. So this was a kind of very unknown information. So what we are also figuring out is we need to increase dramatically the speed of learning about this data. So I'm running right now a project on education. So how to educate physicians and ICUs and hospitals and the managers of hospitals, the benefit of using the information. So that's more or less how.
And congrats to you. I'm really proud about hearing what you guys are doing, and also having that, a group of Brazilians and publishing so many studies and with the technology that never existed, and that can show that in Brazil you can definitely have solutions that can be eventually sold globally. So that's really proud of hearing that from you, Carlos. And I would bring Carol into the discussion because you mentioned about you were raising your second round of funding, and then you were wondering how funds are going to behave during this time. So I would maybe bring in Carol to the discussions and ask more about, any specific industries, Carol, that you're very excited about, like healthcare, for example, or even logistics, like they were mentioning, or data, and what you guys are doing in terms of strategy. If you're, just looking at the portfolio right now, or you're still looking into investments in specific industries and companies that actually generate cash and are not only cash burners. So if you can give us some thoughts, I would really appreciate that.
So at first I would like to bring you back like 5 weeks ago. So 5 weeks ago, the team was working intensively, it still is, but we were working like, even though, technically the online market got a much smaller hit, than the offline market, and we just work with tech. So we do venture capital for tech companies. We're very focused on that, but tech can be in any industry. In any case, the team was working intensively, and we suffered a lot because of our startups company. So we're providing lots of support to the founders and to the startups. We have all our attention focused on our own portfolio, and as they had to go through very different challenges that they were used to. And Ronald was saying something about, creativity and things working differently. So imagine that in a startup, a small team of people that actually are used to do that for a living. So in a crisis, they do it even more. It's a very important and time-sensitive decisions that they needed to take, and the companies needed to focus on different scenarios and perspectives, and that's what we actually do for them. We're there for them to provide them with some inputs, and the cash flow analysis was almost a daily concern on our internal process. So we would go through each portfolio company, go through their cash flow analysis, and have like 5 different scenarios. I know you guys are used to have like 2-3 scenarios in a year. We had 5 in a week or 2, and they would change to another 5 in the next week or the other. So it was an insane time. At this moment, I think the team is finally breathing a little, as we believe our companies are in general very well prepared. Some have focused on different products. Some have pivoted their models. Some, and a good number of them, have actually benefited from the crisis, because technology is the key to the crisis itself. And I think that's the biggest lesson we're going to get out of this. And I believe VTEX is going through the same situation. We believe that technology can actually change our world for better. So we're now actually being able to focus on the fund strategies. I'm getting there, Carlos, I'm getting there, okay? So looking a little bit into the future, with this gradual quarantine release that we believe is going to happen, we believe that, optimism bubbles will emerge. And we're getting ready for this new normal, or the new normal, we don't know, as technology will be the solution for most of these issues. And the new technology solutions and possibilities that can position the fund to generate very positive returns to our LPs are out there. So we're looking for them as well. We have, during crisis, venture capital is not as cyclical as some industries. So we have good and bad companies in each vintage. We don't believe in, well, we are in a crisis, we're not going to invest. No, we are going to invest. The issue is about valuation, and that's a second, an apart issue that we might not even discuss here, but basically we believe some things are going to change. The Brazilian ecosystem is very robust. We have angels, we have VCs. There are several unicorns being raised as we speak. And the investors' appetite is generally a little reduced during crisis, but as to Carlos' point, and a partner of mine reminded me earlier today, investment is a ratio of fear and greed. So, they get away a little from emotion, and they know that, we know that, nothing will get back to what it was before. And we believe that this behavior change will transform the world where we live in. And we believe that the crisis will actually benefit most of our businesses. That's what we actually believe, and what we see in NASDAQ, for instance, which is already in the pre-crisis level. Technology is more important than ever, than it was ever. Yeah. The new normals are being created, and opportunities will arise from different areas, and the team is working hard to cover all of them. Having said that, we do not have a sector thesis to your second question, Guilherme. We look into everything. We basically need a good entrepreneur that believes in a thesis which actually align with our thesis. That's what we believe. We believe, we invest in people, and we have our thesis. And if the thesis of this person and this team aligns with our thesis, that might be a company we're going to invest. Of course, we had made some very good bets in health. Health is one of them. We believe health is the new fintech. And just saying a little bit about fintech. Fintech was a very large market with inefficiencies. And that's a classic for having companies to boom. So fintech gains notoriety in Brazil, as we know, and Guilherme has several deals in fintech in Brazil. But we actually, at a certain point, right, Guilherme, we only had 2 digital banks. We had Nubank, we had Neon, but now we have several. So it's a very crowded and competitive environment. Redpoint, we made several investments in fintech as well. I'm not saying that we're not investing in it. We're going to continue investing in it, but there are other segments which are still open. Health is one of them. It's very open. The crisis made this very clear, as exactly as Carlos was saying. It was amazing to see you guys talking about all that, you know, because that's what we see as well. Some segments will be reinvented. Entertaining will be reinvented. Real estate will be reinvented. If we think about, you know, everybody doing home office, and the fact that this most of the people in this generation do not want to have a real estate. They're used to Uber. They're used to rent things. So we basically see other things coming and getting aligned into a new normal. We have a marketplace, for instance, of health, of mental health, and it's thriving. It's going so well during this crisis because everybody needs some help at this moment. And people who were concerned about meeting a psychologist, a therapist through online, they're not any longer. The issue is to understand how our behavior is going to change. That's very hard. It's a futurology sort of work that I'm unable to do. But you know, when you see China now, and you see that after COVID, everybody's going to Hermes and, you know, having these huge lines in front of this fashion companies. Is this, you know, is this the new normal? Is this the way it's going to happen? Or are we going to think more about, you know, relationships? How are they going to evolve? Are we going to get closer to our school friends? You know, xenophobic? It's going to be the end of pollution? We don't know. So all opportunities are around us, and we're looking into that. I think that, you know, Carlos, to your point, your specific point, I think valuation is suffering a little bit, especially in Brazil. Most of the term sheets that were being negotiated in dollars are being negotiated in reais, which makes sense for Brazil, not if the company is exposed to a different market such as the US. But there are some, you know, little changes that are going to happen, definitely.
I'm pretty sure about that, Carol. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was really enlightening. So thank you. And then to your point on the future new normal, and we also got a question from Arnaldo Carreira. He was asking also about what are the macro trends that we will see in the horizon after the pandemic. Not only, you know, let's say working from home, but what else? And so I would maybe turn to Mike and ask. He was telling us a lot of, you know, he has a lot of data and he has seen many things in his work in his company. So, Mike, based on all the data that you have seen, in your opinion, what will be the new normal macro trends and things you believe will be changing, or if you could, you know, make recommendations and share with us if you're seeing, you know, things related to demand or how this crisis changed markets and trends for the future?
Boy, tough question. Thanks. Let me say a couple things before I answer the question to the best of my ability. I think there's an evolution in the use of analytics, generally speaking, that in the past, people looked to understand the performance that had already occurred. And now people are trying to predict things that will happen in the future. And ideally use those predictions to make decisions better. And so what are they really trying to accomplish when they look at what we call predictive analytics or prescriptive analytics, okay? And it turns out that there are lots of relationships, as Carol was talking about. I think I've got the right, Carolina was talking about. Those relationships can be very complex and unstable. So, for example, in the US, at first, I live in Florida, and at first people really abided by the lockdown orders very carefully. but over a few weeks, there was a trend that, you know, people didn't pay so much attention. And so over a very short period of time, you know, the relationships of those behaviors have on a business can be, you know, quite significant. And the other thing that we're seeing, and I don't know if I can give the macro trend. I think I agree with what some of the other speakers have said about that there's going to be more willingness to do things by video like we are today. And I think people will become comfortable with that, and it's not going to be a problem. Although this is the longest I've gone without traveling in more than 30 years. So it seems very, very odd to me to be home all the time. But I think that an expectation I would recommend people have is that whatever business you're in, the risk that you're making a bad decision is greater than ever before. And the reason I say that is that these behaviors that drive purchases and demand and competition are very unstable right now, and they're continuing to evolve. And so what I see happening is people are going to use data to make decisions better, but they're also going to monitor to see if the effect of the decision is actually being realized, or if the decision is creating some kind of outcome that wasn't expected. Now, how could that happen? It's possible that you could have made a bad decision at the moment you made it, but if the human behaviors are evolving very quickly, it's more likely an assumption you thought was correct turned out to be wrong at the moment of your decision or shortly after. And so if I were to say, is there a macro trend? I think, you know, people have to pay more attention to data and less attention to their past experience and what we call gut feelings. And so that the focus on data will make a big difference in every business. And there could be, you know, quite frankly, kind of a generational effect here where in general, younger people are probably more willing to behave that way. And it could be that they adopt, you know, better practices more quickly than others. That's probably the best I can do with that question. Sorry.
That's really helpful, Mike. Thank you.
Okay.
And Alex, I recall you had maybe a couple of slides with some interesting data that also can help, you know, replying to Arnaldo's question.
Yeah. So let me share my screen. I have just 4 slides of a presentation that I got just to talk a little bit about what we are seeing with our data. So taking the path of talking about data, this is what we saw in March 2020. So all our clients, so 3,000 online stores in 30 different countries, this was the variation if we compare March with February. So you can see that grocery stores, department stores, toys, sports, foods and beverage, they are all growing. And grocery is crazy, like 4 times what they were used to sell. While like jewelry, home appliances, home furniture and decor and auto parts are going down. But in general, so this is a picture looking at each of the sectors, the industries. And this is the general picture. So basically like this 8,228,175 is how many orders we had in the last 30 days. So I got this print screen yesterday. So in the last 30 days, we had almost 9 million orders. In the 30 days before, we had 7,693,000 orders. And last year, same period, we had only 2,570,000 orders. So I wish VTEX was growing to 120% year over year. That's not the case yet. However, we can see that besides the organic growth, so I would like remove maybe 40% from here. So 40% is organic growth. The other 180%, it's the growth that the COVID is pushing. And as you can see here, basically these are our top 52 accounts. This green last column is how much they are selling compared with last year. So basically we have most of our top 50 accounts selling 3, 4, 5 times more than what they were selling the same period of last year, of 12 months ago. So this is how e-commerce is reacting, and this is how I said that we are kind of living a Black Friday every day, because we have at least 4 times the traffic that we used to have. And some initiatives that our clients are doing. So basically, some of our clients, they are kind of using their stores as warehouses. So they continue to sell, they continue to use the store inventory as a warehouse of the e-commerce, of the online store. So that's a way of having them taking advantage of all the locations. Yes, it's expensive to do that, but it's better to have the product to ship for than not to have it. Other clients, and this is a case that we have in Romania, this guy, Mini Prix, he sells like apparel and accessories, so shoes, t-shirts, etc. They started to sell food. So they started to expand their assortment to take advantage of the traffic that they had to sell essential products, because they saw that people were not buying t-shirts and shoes as they were buying before. However, they were looking for alcohol, for cleaning supplies and other things. So these are just some examples of how our clients, they are reinventing themselves during the crisis. And we see a lot of growth on the tech industry, mainly on the e-commerce. So we are fortunate of being in this industry right now. And we are trying to take advantage of that in a positive way.
Yeah, and it comes, you know, back to the point where we were discussing before that, and I think Rodrigo mentioned that you know, most of the companies now will have to go digital, and there will be no solution from lawyers to doctors to all those very, let's say, traditional professions and businesses. Everything will have to go digital. And that would be a revolution. I checking here the chat, and then Ricardo Gomez, he brought the point here on the macro trend, saying that in the UK, there, you know, litigation and the court system will never go back to what it was before. So maybe, you know, we're not having courts where people go to defend their cases. It's all going to be done online through some platform. So maybe politics, the way we vote, the way we talk to the people we elect, and they talk to their constituents, that may change and be more flexible. We don't know. So there are many things that are definitely going to be interesting to see. I liked Carol's approach, which was optimistic, and this was refreshing, because most of you guys are optimistic and somehow giving us a positive way of looking at the crisis, because naturally at the firm, I work with technology venture capital startups. So my clients are concerned, but they are somehow saying, hey, I mean, I already live in this digital world, but we have many clients in traditional industries that are suffering the hit really bad. So sometimes I talk to other partners who are assisting those clients, and it's a happy conversation. Let's put it this way. So this conversation was really refreshing. If I also have one question here, and we have 300,000 attorneys, Ricardo said, in Rio de Janeiro. So that's a lot, and definitely we're gonna. Lawyers will have to find other stuff to do, because it's digital. It's a profession that is really, it has always been really inefficient, in my opinion. So and then maybe one last question before we finish, if Sueli, if we don't have more time, but we had an interesting question here, maybe to Carlos. How do we balance privacy and public health in the pandemic? And I think this is it's a very interesting question in terms of public policy and interesting to Brazil as well. So Carlos, wanna take this one?
So that's one of the big differences between, you know, the country's legislations and regulatory. So China, as we know, has a completely different context and environment than we have in the US and other countries. But even here in the US, so we as a firm, we are fully HIPAA compliant, which is the norm that we have to be conform with. But even without the HIPAA, within HIPAA, they are considering ways to flexibilize a little bit, so to speed up all the research. But I don't see that happening a big change here in the countries that are more open and free. I see that more happening in more closed economies like China or others. So I don't see a big change in the regulatory and legislation. It is still a big change or difference between, you know, centralized governments and more free and open governments. We don't know how China will react, because it became very clear that some of the data and research from China had some methodological issues. So even the Chinese government acknowledged that some of the results that they were publishing were not so accurate as they said. But again, for me, it's more the question about how China will react rather than the, you know, Europe and other countries that have already a more tightened regulation.
Great, thank you.
In the health sector.
Yeah, no, got it. And I agree with you. I think more leaning towards your view on this one. Last question before you finish, and this I will leave to whoever raises his or her hand and say, hey, I want to reply to this one, but because this is an interesting one. So Stefano Donati was asking, for a fast global development, many social cultural factors must be considered. So do you think politics is ready to push for an epochal change? So in terms of politics and the way, you know, our democracies work, do you see any change? This is really interesting and philosophical question. Carol unmuted herself, so not sure if she's the one taking this.
It was just a coincidence, but I can give you So, short answer, no. I don't think they're ready for that. I think that we, as a society, we need to push for that. As you know, the politics, they sometimes forget that they represent the society, which is a weird stuff, to me at least. But I think that the society is ready for this change, for this epic change. But I don't think that the political system is, even though we had, you know, we had electronic voting happening in Brazil, right, Guilherme? In the Congress, which was a new thing. But I don't have many hopes. I have more hopes in the entrepreneurs than I have in the politicians. That's what I can say.
Yes, my view on, I would, you know, I think it's going to take some more time. May take, I don't know, maybe the entrepreneurs saying, hey, I'm done founding companies. I will now help with politics, and, you know, who knows, maybe that can help in the future. But I think we're running out of time, guys. Sueli, do you want to maybe final remarks?
Can I just make a comment?
Sure,
I also don't believe that structurally we're going to see a change, but there are new kind of leading references becoming more relevant. So like the president from New Zealand, although it's a small island, I know all the conditions, but what she's doing and proposing there is quite interesting. So she's been able to propose that because of what's happening. I don't think she would be able to propose what she's proposing. And also the relevance of women in leadership. So women are doing much better than men.
Yeah.
This could be two things that people will talk about it afterwards. But I agree. I don't see any structural change.
Well noted, Carlos. Well noted.
Yeah.